Hello everybody. Today I was gonna try something new. I'm gonna make a series of tank guides for every dungeon that are played on a semi-high level. I think all these routes I'm gonna show you in all the dungeons I have used up to at least a plus 15s. So up to that point at least you can use these routes and tips and tricks. What we can begin with is that we pull these 3 mobs and drag them to the mobs in the middle. As a monk you can just throw kick smash and then run towards the next pack. As a paladin you have your divine shield, you have your steed. As a warrior you have your stomp and then your roll clip. Demon hunter you jump. Guardian druid I guess you can pop roar. And as a DK you can just have to run the blood boil and just run. But for Nokhud, this is the routes I'm gonna use and I'm gonna walk it through from start to finish. For the first area, it isn't that much that happens. There's gonna be some discharges and put the dots on some people, so on higher you just need to pull less. It's gonna be archers, just ignore them. They don't really do that much. You can't taunt them at least as a tank. And the big guy you have prio to interrupt him so he doesn't get his roar out. And there's gonna be horn blowers that just gonna power up all mobs. And those needs to be stunned, encapped or anything. After that pull, you can go to the pull number 3, and what you're gonna do is that you're gonna start with those at the harpoon, and you're gonna interrupt the caster. And when you have interrupted the caster, you can pull more the big patrol, because in the harpoon mobs there's not a horn blower, which means there's one less stun that you need to do. And you just are 1 hornblower and 2 interrupts, and the interrupts have a really long cooldown, so you're fine. Just need to survive and have a healer that can top everyone else up. Remember, we all are humans and we all do mistakes. I forgot to cleanse the plus 10 affix and we wiped because of it. Sure, I was shame pulling and the people that was behind could have cleansed it easily, but if you're having pugs, you can't really communicate that with your pugs, and they maybe didn't know that you were gonna do a shame pull. So if you're only pugging, pull safer and just pull one mob in one pack at a time. I would personally advise to tell your bloodluster that they're gonna bloodlust on first pull because it's a big pull, and in a shame pull. Then on the second boss, because it's a kind of hard boss in the bugs normally. And lastly on the last boss, depending if you have a demon hunter or good CC or interrupt perfectly. I would say bloodlust on ads, otherwise just go take it whenever. Also the bleed buff they are putting out, it does a lot of damage in higher keys, and on fortify and raging and bolstering it will do even higher damage. So as long as you're not a dark arm dwarf or a dwarf, that you can cleanse it yourself, try to care about that, and maybe pop a cooldown if it gets too high, because it's gonna shrink your HP. Or if it's just me or a monk that takes a lot of damage from dots. Remember that all the mobs in these pulls are stunnable, interruptible and everything. The only one that doesn't get interrupted is the big guy. And the archers, you can't really move them. So for Sanguine weeks I would recommend don't kite and hold mobs that you can move on top of archers, because that's just gonna make your life so much harder when they are destined to die, but just stands there and gets healed up to full. And for the boss, it isn't that much you need to do or have in your mind, more than to kite the boss towards where the mob is spawned, so you can cleave it down meanwhile you're still hitting the boss. Otherwise the the healer or range should take care of the harpoon. That should be fired immediately when it's ready. And it's just because the harpoon does 5% of the boss HP and stuns it. I would recommend you as a new tank to download Little Wigs or Big Wigs. You can use CBM as well, but in Little Wigs you can change all the sounds for every single cast that comes out. So you can really customize and just know by sound what ability comes out. This is more of a DPS thing, but always focus down the totem. And in this pole, the arc blades uses an ability that you can walk away from or to the I don't think you can walk to the sides. I've tried that and it didn't work. You can stun them, but that does a lot of magic damage. And you can't stun the big guy, so have your eyes on his interrupt, because that's the only thing you can interrupt here. The nice smaller elements you can dispel and make them pop immediately. So a demon hunter again would be huge here. Otherwise just take a mage or someone else that can just take off magic spells, like a shaman. Then after that, the ads, the big rhino, you can just interrupt, walk out of him when he does his AoE. And the elements does a lot of damage when they have their shields on. So hopefully have a hunter that can just cleanse it. But other than that, very simple pull. You can chain pull it in if in any of the other packs if they are close. Here's the same as like before. Always have interrupts. In all of the ads are really important to interrupt. There's only one person that can't be stunned. So prioritize interrupt on him first and use stuns on the other ones. There's gonna be a new mob that's gonna make it so it does a lot of AoE damage. As a monk at least you can defuse this back at him and do a lot of damage. Now when we have gone through all the ads, now it's just rinse and repeat. Dodge the lightning, interrupt the lightning and stun everything you can see. Try to have an extra eye on who get targeted by the storm bolts. If you are the one that gets storm bolted, then you don't really need to interrupt. It's more important when DPS is targeted or healer, especially if they're low. preparing for the boss, you can start cutting down the mobs and have a look if your healer needs mana. This boss is kinda heavy on the healer, so try to see if he has at least over half the mana. And I would personally want to have Bloodlust on this boss, and everyone should have split them around the boss evenly, otherwise it's probably gonna be a wipe. For example, for me here, this pull is gonna be a wipe because everyone was still standing on one side together and no one cleansed, so we're all gonna get stuck, we're gonna be stunned, take a lot of damage, and we need to take orbs, otherwise that's gonna wipe us. As a tank, you cannot go out of this little inner sand circle-ish around the boss, because if you do, he's gonna start using his ability Wind Burst, which does just a lot of single target damage on you and unnecessary nature damage. I would always be inside that ring. The only time I would say go out of it if you need to cleanse the plus 10 FX, or if he's doing his big AoE mechanic where you can just run around freely. The orbs might boost your HPS and your DPS, but also it makes you to take more damage, at least when you take the orb up. So be careful so you don't pick up more balls than you need. Try to use the circles, the big AoEs, to just blow the balls up, because for you it's not that important to have more DPS in some cases. So this part is gonna be a little bit different from each time you do this, depending on how fast you have been. But you always want to take these wolves and the caster. You need to interrupt him. It's not that important to have him interrupted, but it's really nice, because otherwise he's gonna spawn more wolves. that doesn't do that much damage, but you need to tank them, so you might need to reposition and such, which can be scary. After that, you want to kite them all to the packs to the left on the top of the hill, and hopefully the birds get circulated. Try to have a look for them, so you get those birds with that pack, and just blow them all out, and it's fine. There's gonna happen some stuff in this pool. First of all, you're gonna have a mortal strike, which reduces the HPS you get. There's gonna still be maybe the guy that summons the wolves that needs to be interrupted. There's a lot of death bolts that can go out that needs interrupted. And there's also a healer that puts a healing debuff on himself, so he heals himself and maybe all other people. Also needs to be interrupted. So AoE stuns are really good here. Or just do a AoE stun and only use CCs on the big guy that can't be CC'd otherwise. I always like to do double pull here, because the small pack with the wolves doesn't really do anything more than he summons more wolves, which is not dire. And in the other pack it's like only 2-3 casters. That's really easy to interrupt or stun. And other than that, it's not really that much that happens, so just pop a small defensive and blow them up. I mean, it doesn't really happen anymore, that much anymore. We can more focus on just stunning and interrupting death bolts, and don't stand in unnecessary AoE that comes out. This is the one of the last non-interesting pull. You don't really do much with this. What you can do is to pull this one with the pack that stands below. If you have interrupters and you're fast on interrupting, you can move them up together so they're stacked up. That's great. Do that. But otherwise, I would just say take them separately. You have time. Now after this pack is dead, we're gonna go our ways a little bit more to the right, and we're gonna take the pack that runs around, and we're gonna take the wolves. Take the wolves first, just because it happens sometimes for me that the wolves just despawns out of thin air, and I don't really know if that makes the percentage not enough. But just be safe, take the wolves and then take the pack, and then blast them down. They do the same as all the other mobs. It's a kind of headache, but it's a easy pull. Like I said, it is really a headache. It is a lot of shit that happens. But just keep your stuns on cooldown if you have interrupt the wolf spawner. It's a necessary focus you need to put on, and it's just easier to CC him. For this boss, you need to always have the dude close to the archer, because otherwise they're gonna get a stacking debuff where them both are just getting stronger and stronger, and she's gonna do an ability where she jumps to a new place. You can see it by looking and see a light like wind effect. And you can also see her use a spirit leap ability, and she faces the way that she's gonna jump to. And he's also gonna do a fear, so before he's gonna do the fear, try to look where he's gonna jump. Other than that, it's not really that much that can happen more than when she casts her earthquake interrupt ability. Try to be as fast as possible to interrupt that for unnecessary knockback and damage loss. He's gonna also cast an ability that chunks a lot of your HP, so depending on how hard it hits for the first one, prepare with some more mitigation. So iron healing for DKs, iron fur for druids and such. Just you prepare for it. Yeah, probably seen this skip, but you just fly up to this edge and you skip every single mob and just goes directly to the boss and the 2 ads beforehand that. These 2 ads doesn't really do anything. They do a connel that you need to dodge, and it casts their spear that needs to be avoided. And also they do a charge attack, which is doesn't really do that much damage, but just avoid it. And then they casting a AoE fear that you can have a priotised to just interrupt. Other than that, just kill them both and prepare for boss. Okay, so now for the boss. He's gonna cast a big bleed ability on you. It doesn't do that much damage, but if you are, for say, a dwarf like me, yes, you can de-cleanse it and be done with the bleed directly. Make it a little easier for the healer in the beginning, and so he can, if you have hero on pull, make it so you can pump a little bit harder. Normally, how I want to do this ad phase is that I always CC the right one, so paralyze and like freezing trap the 2 to right, and then blast down to the left ones, have them interrupted, and then run back to the right one and kill them off afterwards. What you can also do is to have a DK, mass grip them all and then blast them down, or have a demon hunter that can just CC silence rune to right, jump to left one, and you're good to go and can start pumping them down. Then I would really recommend to just pop hero to make that phase go even faster. Now you're gonna see a very nice video when me and the healer just need to take down the boss from 50% on our own. It's not really the most fun, but it needs to be done. And the boss casts an ability that hopefully your healer knows what to dispel. it puts a debuff on you where you're gonna take a lot of, like 500% more damage and 300% increased damage from his next ability he's gonna do. So it needs to go off. But I think that warriors can spell reflect it, and it does a lot of dot damage. Me as a monk, I can diffuse magic it and just take it back on him and make him take a lot more damage. Other than that, in phase 2 he's gonna do his Connell again, and when he does that he's gonna do a pool. Just keep moving. When it happens you take 1 tick and it doesn't do that much damage. And don't stand in front of him when he's gonna do his charge. That can do a lot of damage and just repositions you, which is not that fun. But other than that, I would say just try this dungeon out, try the route out, and experiment with your abilities, what you can diffuse magic on, what you can spell reflect on. Just practice and try and error, see what you feel most comfortable with. If you can do this route in the other like sections in different orders, but the mob count at least counts up to exactly 100%, almost a tiny bit over 100%, but it doesn't go up to 110%. So it's a perfect amount of mobs, so I would recommend to just use it. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this guide, and I'm gonna make more for the rest of the dungeons for season 1 Dragonflight, and probably gonna do the new ones when season 2 comes out and new dungeons are in the pool, after I've done some testing and trying and see what works for me. So for now I'm just gonna let this video play out until the boss is dead, and then we'll see if we get any loot from this boss.